If you're still here, sitting quietly in your living room in Ohio, or maybe on the back porch of a small home in Texas, or even watching this from a retirement apartment in Florida, wherever you are in America right now, I want you to pause for just a moment, take a slow breath in, and ask yourself a simple question. When was the last time you truly touched your body, not just to bathe or to dress, but to say, I'm still here, I still matter, this is still my home? You see, no one tells us this when we get older. Doctors talk about cholesterol, blood pressure, arthritis, but they rarely mention the quiet fading of connection between us and the very body that carried us through life. And before we even notice, we stop looking in the mirror, we stop reaching for ourselves, we stop listening to the soft voice inside that says, I still want to feel alive. But here's the truth I've learned after 30+ years walking alongside aging patients across the country. That voice doesn't go away. It just grows quieter until someone finally gives it permission to speak again. So if you're watching this, maybe alone, maybe uncertain, maybe quietly curious, know this: you are not too old. You are not too late. And your body has not given up on you. In the next hour, I'm going to walk you through something that could gently but powerfully change how you think about aging, not as a decline, but as a reconnection. We'll talk about the body, the brain, the heart, even the immune system, and how something as simple, as natural, as self-intimacy could be the key to restoring all of it. Before we begin, let me ask you something personal. Which state are you watching from? I'd love to know where this message is reaching. Type your state in the comments. Let's see how far this conversation travels. And if you're ready to reclaim a part of yourself that's been quiet for too long, hit the like button, subscribe, and turn on that bell. You won't want to miss what's coming next, because what we're about to talk about, they don't teach in schools, they don't say in clinics, but it's one of the most important truths of growing older with strength, dignity, and aliveness. Let's begin. 1. The silent disconnect. When self-touch fades, so does your body awareness. It often starts so quietly, we don't even notice. Maybe it's the moment you start turning off the bathroom light before looking in the mirror, or when you reach for your clothes without feeling the skin beneath your fingertips, or when you go to bed and realize it's been weeks, months, maybe even years since you truly touched your body with intention, not out of habit, not out of duty, but out of presence, with kindness and curiosity. I once sat with a woman in her early 70s, a retired nurse from Minnesota. She said something that cut deep. I feel like I've slowly moved out of my body, but I never signed the lease to leave. She wasn't talking about illness. She wasn't in pain, but she felt invisible, even to herself. This right here is what I call the silent disconnect. As we age, many of us start pulling away from our physical selves. We stop checking in, we stop listening, we stop inhabiting, sometimes out of shame, sometimes out of grief. Sometimes just because no one ever told us that self-touch was still allowed or still necessary. But here's the truth. Your body, even in its wrinkles and changes and softer edges, still longs to be felt, still longs to be acknowledged. Self-touch isn't just about arousal. It's about ownership. It's about reclaiming the simple truth. This body is still mine. Let me share a small insight from Dr. Mohit Khera, a urologist and researcher I deeply respect. He once said in a conference, "The first step to healing any man or woman over 60 is not medication. It's helping them feel at home in their body again." That sentence stayed with me because what he meant was this: when we no longer feel connected to our bodies, we stop taking care of them. We skip checkups. We dismiss pain. We stop eating well, moving well, sleeping well. Why? Because deep down, we've already said goodbye, even though we're still here. So if any part of you feels that quiet drift, that sense of becoming a stranger in your own skin, know that it's not too late. Tonight, try something simple. Place your hand over your heart. Feel its rhythm. Not to judge, not to fix, just to say, I'm still here. Because when you reconnect with your body, even gently, even privately, you begin to reopen a door, one that leads back to confidence, vitality, and yes, even pleasure. And speaking of pleasure, let's talk about something few doctors ever mention, but every older adult deserves to understand. What really happens inside your body when you stop releasing regularly. Not just emotionally, but physiologically, starting deep in the prostate. Let's go there in the next chapter. Now moving on to 2. The prostate truth, what really happens without regular release. There's something that many men over the age of 60 don't know. And sadly, no family doctor ever dares to tell them outright. It's this. When you stop ejaculating regularly, your prostate starts to react. Quietly, silently, but very real. I remember an old patient, Bob, 72 years old, living in Tennessee. He didn't come to see me for anything serious. It was just, lately he'd been waking up around 2 or 3 in the morning needing to pee. Some nights, it happened 4 or 5 times. He said, "It's probably just old age, right, Doc? I'm healthy, I eat well, but this bladder just keeps messing with me." When I gently asked, "When was the last time you ejaculated?" He hesitated, then honestly replied, "Maybe a few years ago. After my wife passed, I just didn't think about it anymore." And that was exactly what was quietly disrupting the balance in his body. The prostate isn't a passive organ, it's a living gland, producing fluid, contracting, functioning daily, and it needs to be emptied regularly, like a filtration system that has to be flushed out. When you stop releasing, fluid builds up in the prostate. Over time, it thickens, causing microscopic blockages, leading to mild inflammation, causing pressure, and the result is nighttime urination, weak urine stream, the feeling of not quite done after peeing, or even having to sit down to urinate instead of standing, like before. Dr. Mohit Khera, in a seminar on aging men's health, once said, "The prostate is like a small lake. If water doesn't circulate, it becomes stagnant, and stagnant water will eventually lead to disease." That quote matches exactly what I've seen in many patients. Many ended up on medication, or even surgery, when all they really needed was to maintain a natural release habit, and their bodies could rebalance themselves. And here's the important thing I want you to remember. Regular ejaculation, whether through sex or masturbation, is not a nostalgic act of youth or a luxury for the elderly. It's a natural way to care for your prostate, free and without side effects. A study from Harvard University even showed men who ejaculate 21 times or more per month have a 33% lower risk of prostate cancer compared to those who do it less. It doesn't have to be a lot, and there's no need to rush. Just consistently, gently, and with respect for your body. Afterward, Bob did something small. He started reconnecting with his body, in his own way, in his own space. A month later, he called me and said, "I'm sleeping better, peeing less, and strangely, Bill, I feel like I've become my own man again." You see, sometimes the issue isn't age, but neglect. When you stop releasing, it's not just the prostate that suffers, but your central nervous system begins to starve. Lacking the hormones and neurotransmitters, it needs to stay sharp. So what happens to the brain when the body no longer feels regular satisfaction and stimulation? Join me in the next part, where we'll explore the connection between self-touch and mental clarity. Next up, 3. Brain fog. Why a lack of body connection can cloud the mind. I don't feel like myself anymore. That's what Mr. Carl, a retired teacher in Colorado, told me during a routine checkup. He said, "I walk into a room and forget why I came in. I get tired reading just a short article. My once sharp mind feels like it's covered in fog." He was worried he might be developing dementia or entering the early stages of Alzheimer's, but after going through a full set of neurological tests, the results were all normal. No disease, no damage, just a slow fading that no one could explain. But I had a different question for him. "Have you touched your body recently?" He hesitated, then gently shook his head. "I didn't think that was necessary anymore. I've been living just fine without it for years." This is a very common misunderstanding. Many people believe that Sexual activity or self-touch is only for the young, but in reality, your body, especially your brain, still needs regular stimulation to stay alert and connected. Did you know when you touch yourself, your brain doesn't just feel good, it releases a series of essential chemicals. Dopamine creates pleasure, excitement, motivation. Serotonin regulates mood, fights depression. Oxytocin enhances connection, reduces stress. Endorphins relieve pain, promote relaxation. These aren't just feel-good hormones. They stimulate blood flow to the brain, support neural networks, and protect brain cells from the effects of chronic stress. Dr. Mohit Kara once shared at a major health conference, when a man completely stops sexual activity, his testosterone levels can drop by 20–30% more quickly. And testosterone isn't just about libido, it also affects memory, confidence, and even the will to live. In other words, when the body stops feeling, the mind quietly begins to withdraw. I've seen strong, confident men suddenly grow withdrawn, forgetful, unmotivated, without ever realizing they were simply missing a very basic form of self-connection. And this doesn't happen only to men. Women after menopause experience something similar. The drop in estrogen and oxytocin can lead to a mental state that feels empty. Have you ever felt something like that? Not quite sadness, not quite pain, just not as clear as before. The good news is, you can absolutely regain that clarity, not with brain supplements, not with memory games, but by reconnecting with your body. With curiosity, gentleness, and consistency, Mr. Carl, the teacher, after understanding this, began practicing touch with presence. Every morning, he spent a few quiet minutes gently touching his hands, his face, his heart, and simply feeling. He said, "I don't just feel like I'm back. I feel like I'm present." And that's what truly matters. Not remembering everything, but remembering yourself. But when the mind starts to fade, emotions begin to dull too. So what happens when you no longer feel joy, sadness, or any emotion at all? Let's step into the next part, where we'll explore one of the deepest corners of the aging heart, emotion and loneliness. Next up, 4. Depression and emotional numbness. When the body loses touch, the soul grows cold. I don't feel sad, I don't feel happy either. I just feel empty. Those were the first words from Linda, 74 years old, widowed for 8 years, when she came in for a health check in California. She didn't come because she was sick. There were no clear symptoms. She just didn't feel anything anymore. I used to love gardening. I used to enjoy jazz every evening. But now, everything feels like a muted song. I wasn't surprised, because I've heard this story many times in both men and women, and it always starts with the same thing. They had stopped connecting with their bodies in silence. Depression in older adults isn't loud like it is in the young. It doesn't scream, panic, or rebel. It's quiet, like how you slowly stop doing the things that used to bring you joy. It's subtle, like a light dimming each night and no one noticing. And sometimes even you don't realize you're sad. When you stop touching yourself, you stop allowing yourself to feel your skin, to feel warmth, to feel your heartbeat. Over time, the nervous system also becomes sluggish in responding to emotional signals. Joy no longer makes you smile. Sadness no longer brings tears. Everything becomes flat. Dr. Mohit Kara once said something profoundly moving. During every orgasm, the brain releases oxytocin and endorphins, natural antidepressants far more powerful than medication. If you haven't experienced that moment for a long time, the brain runs out of emotional fuel, and the coldness begins to set in. I once had a male patient, 69 years old, whose wife had passed away from cancer. After the funeral, he stopped all physical contact, even with himself, not because he had no desire, but because he believed, I have no reason to touch this body anymore. Over the next 6 months, he became quiet, irritable, sleepless, and lost his appetite. He was prescribed sleeping pills, supplements, even antidepressants. None of them worked. Then one day, after a long conversation, he broke down in tears. For the first time in years, he realized, "I'm not sad because my wife passed away. I'm sad because since then, I've never touched myself again." You see, self-touch is not about desire. It's about emotional survival. It's a reminder that this body is still alive. I can still feel. I still deserve to feel. Maybe you're thinking, but at my age, do I still need that? The answer is yes, more than ever. Because when people lose their emotions, they don't just lose joy, they lose the meaning of life. If you've ever gone through long, empty days where everything feels like a copy of yesterday, try starting again with one small act. A gentle touch on your hand, a moment where you place your hand on your chest and softly say, "I still have feelings, and I deserve to feel them." Because from that very connection, the streams of emotion will return. Soft as breath, but deep enough to awaken the human part within us. And once the emotions return, the next thing that gradually heals is sleep. Because when the body is no longer regularly released, we don't just lose the joy of life, we lose the peaceful nights too. Next up, 5. Shattered sleep. When the body isn't released, it forgets how to rest deeply. "I do sleep, doctor. It's just, I wake up at 2 a.m. like someone's calling my name. Then I just lie there, restless, until the sun comes up." That came from Raymond, 68 years old, a retired firefighter in Arizona. His body is still strong, blood pressure's fine, no signs of sleep apnea, but every morning he wakes up feeling like he never really rested. "It's like I just closed my eyes but didn't actually sleep." Have you ever felt that way? No dreams, no depth, no restoration, just lying there waiting for the next day, in a body that still feels tired. Many older adults think it's just something that comes with age, but in reality, most persistent sleep problems have clear biological causes. And one of them, rarely considered, is this: a lack of biological release through self-touch or sexual activity. When you reach orgasm, whether through sex or masturbation, the body releases a golden cocktail of hormones that promote deep sleep. Oxytocin calms the nervous system, reduces stress. Prolactin induces relaxation and sleepiness. Endorphins relieve pain and soothe the entire body. Cortisol, the stress hormone, drops sharply after release. At the same time, the heart rate slows, muscles relax, and the brain shifts into recovery mode. On the other hand, when this activity is absent for a long time, the body loses its natural regulation to guide you into deep sleep. Instead, there's restlessness, anxiety, frequent nighttime awakenings, and a sense of losing control over yourself. Dr. Mohit Kara once shared in a research paper, orgasm in older adults works like a natural sleeping pill, but without addiction, without side effects, and without a prescription. He called it the sleep switch, the body's own built-in sleep trigger. Raymond, after having this explained to him, began to shift his view of his body. He started spending more time caring for himself before bed, taking warm baths, listening to soft jazz, and gently reconnecting with himself. A month later, he came back to the clinic and said, "I didn't just sleep 6 hours straight. I woke up feeling alive." That's what so many older adults are missing: the feeling of waking up and knowing your body truly recovered. If you're relying on sleeping pills, herbal teas, or meditation music, they're all good. But don't forget one thing: your body already has its own calming mechanism. You just need to allow it to work again. One well-timed touch, one gentle connection, might be what brings you back to the deep, healing sleep you had 30 years ago without a single pill. And when your sleep returns, you'll begin to feel something else coming back too: your physical strength. Because a lack of release doesn't just exhaust your mind, it also weakens your muscles, reduces balance, and gradually deteriorates your pelvic floor. Next up, 6. When the body's foundation weakens, the link between self-touch, the pelvic floor, and blood circulation. I don't feel as steady on my feet as I used to. My lower back has this dull ache, and every time I cough or laugh hard, I feel a little wet down there. This story came from Henry, 73 years old, a retired truck driver in Missouri. He used to be strong, grounded, steady, but now, every time he steps into a grocery store, the first thing he looks for isn't the food, it's the nearest restroom. He was shy to talk about it, but I knew this wasn't just about getting old. It was a sign that something deeper inside was weakening. The pelvic floor. The pelvic floor is a group of muscles located at the base of the pelvis, holding up the bladder, bowel, uterus in women, and prostate in men. It's the true foundation of the body, helping us control urination, bowel movements, posture, and even sexual function. But what many people don't know is, these muscles work out every time you're sexually stimulated and reach orgasm. They contract rhythmically, boost blood flow, and stay strong and flexible. When you stop self-touch for months or even years, these muscles become starved. They slow down, lose reflexes, and grow weak, and the results are leaking urine when sneezing, coughing or moving, trouble holding urine during travel, chronic lower back pain, loss of sensation in the pelvic region, reduced sexual function. Dr. Heed Mohit Kara once said, "Self-touch doesn't just ease the mind. It's a form of physiological exercise for the pelvic floor, keeping the body's foundation strong without ever stepping into a gym." Back to Henry. After being taught Kegel exercises along with reconnecting with his body, just 2 months later, he called back sounding excited. "I don't have to rush to the bathroom like before. I even started walking again every morning, and it feels like my legs have roots again." You see, some losses don't come from illness. They come from neglect. And some functions that seem to have left us are simply waiting for a signal of life from within. If you're feeling your hips, back, or legs getting weaker, if you often need to rush to the bathroom, wake up to pee at night, or feel out of control down there, don't be too quick to blame aging. Try bringing life back to your pelvis through presence, through natural activation. Because when the body's foundation is restored, you'll be surprised to find a steadier posture, confidence returning, and most unexpectedly, your internal organs working noticeably better. But it's not just your muscles. Your immune system is waiting for the same thing, a signal of life, a release, to begin working again like it used to. Next up, 7. When the immune system declines, your body weakens day by day without you even realizing it. "I don't even know what's happening to me anymore, doctor. I used to shake off a cold in just a few days. Now a cough drags on for a whole month. It's like my body just doesn't fight back anymore." That came from Susan, 71 years old, living in Maine. She still eats well, takes evening walks, and gets her daily vitamins. But this past winter, she caught a cold 3 times. Each time it wore her out more and took longer to recover. We checked everything. Blood work came back fine. Lungs were clear. No underlying conditions. Finally, I asked a question that seemed completely unrelated. "When was the last time you touched yourself in a personal, intimate way?" She paused, then softly replied, "Since my husband passed, almost 5 years ago." You might think that's a strange question, but in reality, there is a very direct link between the immune system and self-touch. When you reach orgasm, whether through sex or self-stimulation, your body releases a substance called immunoglobulin A, IgA. This is the first line of defense against viruses, bacteria, and harmful agents in the respiratory and digestive tracts. Many studies show people with regular sexual activity have shown significantly higher levels of IgA, which means stronger immunity. Not only that, when properly stimulated, the body also releases endorphins, reduce inflammation, lower stress. Oxytocin helps tissue heal and recover, lower cortisol levels. the stress hormone that, if elevated too long, weakens the immune system. Dr. Mohit Kara once made this comparison. A good orgasm for the immune system is like taking a brisk 30-minute walk in the sunshine. Natural, safe, and effective. Back to Susan. After that consultation, she started a simple practice each night, placing her hand over her chest, taking deep breaths, and gently touching familiar areas of her skin, with no other purpose than to remember what it feels like to live inside this body. She called it her vitamin touch. 3 months later, she returned to the clinic with brighter eyes and a stronger voice. I can't quite explain it, but I feel like my body is starting to work with me again. You see, the body doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to know that you still care about it. And sometimes, a single small action, a light touch, is the signal your entire immune system has been waiting for. If you often get sick, recover slowly, or feel like you're just running on empty without reason, try coming back to the most basic feeling. I touch myself, not out of desire, but because I know this body still wants to live, and I choose to support it. But more important than everything just shared, there's one last thing, equally vital. When you stop touching yourself, you don't just lose your health, you lose your sense of who you are. Next up, 8. When you stop touching, you lose yourself without even knowing it. I'm no longer a woman. I'm just someone growing old in silence. That's what Teresa, a retired school teacher from Michigan, whispered when I asked how she felt about herself after turning 70. She used to be vibrant, graceful, and full of strength. But now, she said, I wear clothes just to cover myself. I look in the mirror and no longer recognize the person I see. Her story isn't rare. I've heard hundreds, even thousands of similar confessions from both men and women saying they no longer feel like they belong in their own bodies. And it often begins with something seemingly small. They stop touching themselves. When you stop self-touch, whether through gentle gestures or quiet, private moments, you're not just giving up pleasure, you're giving up something far more essential to your identity: ownership of your body. Do you remember that feeling when you were younger, looking in the mirror and smiling? That sense of I am me and I am here. It wasn't because you were young. It was because you were connected to your body. You were present in every cell, every movement, every emotion. Dr. Mohit Kara once said something that stayed with me. Older people don't fear death. They fear being forgotten by others and by their own bodies. And I think it's true, because once you stop wanting to touch yourself, you slowly stop caring, stop listening, stop nurturing. You quit exercising, you eat whatever's easiest, you throw on any old shirt, and slowly you disappear inside the body you once loved. But you know what the most incredible part is? You can come back at any time. No one has to give you permission. You don't need a partner. You don't need a perfect body. Just a simple nod to yourself and the willingness to start touching again. A gentle caress on your cheek in the morning. A hand resting on your belly as you breathe. A moment of stillness, feeling your heartbeat. These small acts remind you, I am alive. I still feel, and I am worthy of love, even from myself. Teresa, the woman who once said she was no longer a woman, slowly found her way back to herself. She started wearing dresses again, put on a little lipstick in the mornings, and during quiet afternoons, she spent a few minutes gently touching her hands, her neck, her heart. She said, not to feel sexy, but to remember that I still exist in this life. Dear friend, if you've made it this far with me, I believe there's a voice inside you that's starting to rise. I want to come back. I want to live again in my own body. And I'm here to tell you, you absolutely can, right? You are not too old, and it's not too late. Your body, even if tired, is still listening. And with just one touch, one return, everything can begin again. It's how we say to ourselves, I am still here, and I still deserve to be cared for. If this video touched a part of your heart, Please share it with a friend, someone who might be feeling lonely but hasn't said it out loud. And what state are you in right now? Leave a comment below. I'd love to know where this message has reached people across this country. You are not alone. Because in the end, self-touch isn't an act of desire. It's a ritual of healing. You are not invisible, and the journey back to yourself can begin today.